Well, hi everyone. Back for another episode. My name is Ed Peterson. You can tell I'm new to this. My name is Ed Peterson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and EFT emotionally focused therapy trained supervisor and practicing person in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm goo goo gaga excited about therapy and about the EFT world and yeah, enough about me. I'm just super excited that we have today a dear friend and colleague of mine, Teri Murphy, who's from Tennessee. Hi, Teri.
Hey, it's great to see you, Ed.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. And I think I'm actually going to change this view so they can see both of us. There we go. Okay, so now we both get to be seen. Um, So Terry is a colleague who I've known for God, 3 years now. We had this wonderful we went to this great training in Las Vegas with both of our mentors, George Fowler. And I just remember the first thing I remember about you, Terry, was just how excited you were about learning and just like how juiced up and charged you were about the work that we're doing. And I just, there are probably 10 to 20 people in my world who are kind of in that category. There are people who are as excited about the work that we do as I am, and we're kind of geeks, in some way, about therapy and EFT. And so Terry is a supervisor, a trainer, a brilliant human being. And how about just Terry telling us and my audience a little bit about you?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Ed. I appreciate that. That was such a kind remembering, and you're right. So, fellow geek with you, I do self-proclaim myself as a nerd and science junkie, in addition to caring about matters of the heart and soul.
Mm.
I've been in practice for about 10 years here in Tennessee and have been EFT trained, during that time under the mentorship of Kenny Sandifer as well here in Tennessee. And so grateful for the learning. And I really would say that I do find myself as a lifelong learner, that the more that I learn, the more that I realize the world gets even bigger. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, Ed, but it feels like we kind of learn in spirals and through
Yes.
seasons and go deeper and deeper into that. And that just makes me feel so hopeful and
Mm.
so good and so grounded that there's always, more that we can be leaning into personally, professionally, and in a service sort of way to our communities too. So, yeah.
Well, right. And that makes me, you just said the word hope in there, and this idea of us learning, and I think of that, Terry, that it seems like, especially when it comes down to some of the things that some of the questions that I'm gonna ask you today, that kind of are about how we feel and what we do and how we manage our lives as therapists and what it's like on our side of the couch, because
Yeah,
a lot of time is spent talking about clients, and we'll talk about clients also. They're very important, and I'm hoping there are a lot of people here who are not therapists who can learn things too. um I love that idea. I'm just going to stay with that for a second, of this learning thing, right? And because for me, when it comes like this to issues of self-care, and especially it's this question that I have a lot, which is how can I show up professionally in a way that I'm sharing my heart and my mind with my clients? Because sure, I have training and I have skill,
mm,
I have interventions, but how can I manage my own emotions in session and out of session? And how can I self-care away from my work, right? And even how can I be with my family and the other part of my life? But it seems like for me, it is this thing where I have these like learnings and epiphanies where suddenly I do something or I realize that I can get more grounded. And it sometimes comes from being completely out of whack and
absolutely.
crashing and burning. But then I learn something, and then 3 or 4 months later, I'm back in the same, maybe codependent or just unhealthy patterns. And then something kicks me in the butt again. And then I
Mm,
go back to some more learning, right?
yes,
Does
yes,
that
yes.
make sense? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I totally relate to what you're saying here because I do feel like learning is that way, that we can learn things, top down, where we take in information that makes sense. And then we're trying to figure out how do we apply it, what happens in the experience. I feel like it also happens by experiencing things and then we get curious about it. So it can kind of come bottom up. And then there's that thing that feels like the lightning bolt, or like you stumble into something that was unconscious that kind of jumps up and bites you or kicks you, or a mistake that we make, or we realize we've overbooked ourselves. Like I've had this conversation, I'll text my sister and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many clients I have. You know who scheduled them? Me. Like I'm the one responsible. Like I did that, in a time where I had more energy, and just in the natural ebb and flow of life and experience and energy in our environments, that kind of goes up and down
Right.
too. And so I really do think that we come upon these pockets of learning, these experiences that we have that I believe really are invitations, not just to grow or serve our clients, but to also, go back and remember who we are, to integrate more wholly more of us as
Right.
well, which then of course is going to help us in every other area too. But it's not always easy or linear or straightforward. We learn the same lessons, I feel like,
Yeah.
deeper and over again. You're like, oh yeah, this is familiar, or this is
Right.
new, all of
Well,
that.
and isn't the deal, because you and I have talked about this, I've talked about this with lots of people, is that the hope is that for us as caregivers, therapists, healthcare workers, right, is that with the things you're talking about, that over time that we actually are not only doing better work and helping people,
Mm,
but that we're getting stronger and we're
yeah.
having what I call better emotional IQ. Like we are balancing our head and our heart. And so that like in 3 months and 6 months and a year, I'm actually in better shape emotionally and spiritually, because
Mhm.
one thing I do know is that if I'm going the opposite direction and I'm getting more burned out, then everything explodes.
Yeah.
It explodes with family, because when I'm not taking care of Ed, um, well, it's just and it's really when I'm not loving Ed and when I'm not being
Mm,
present with myself, right? Then things
yeah.
go to hell really quick. So let me tell you the first question that I want to ask you.
Okay.
And just for our audience, for some people who may not be in the EFT or emotionally focused therapy world, there's one of the things that we talk about, which is a thing called attachment theory. And I'm just going
Yeah.
to do one portion of that that might help with this question that I'm going to ask. The thing that attachment theory, one of the things that it's taught us and is empirically proven and scientifically proven, is that all of us as adults, we have certain emotional needs that start when we're a little baby and they take us to the grave. And there are things like this in key relationships. I mean, they could be with kids, but we're talking a lot about key, adult romantic relationships. This sense of this, I have a need to be heard, to be
Mhm.
understood, to be loved, to be cared for, also to know that my partner has my back emotionally. Like maybe when I'm not at my best, will she, my partner is a woman, Candace, my love, will she be there for me? Will she have my back? Will, a big one is like when a person like my partner actually really knows me, like gets to know the real Ed. And that's not just the good stuff, but all of the quirky stuff and all of the selfish stuff. Like, are they going to stick around? Are they going to love me as unconditionally as they can, right? These are these different kinds of needs. And so the question that I want to ask you, Teri, is this: if you think about it, could be a client situation, it could be a personal situation, but I don't know if you take it could be something in the last 3 months, right? Some experience that you could share that highlights you learning about your own heart, your own emotional and physical and spiritual health, and some, challenging relationship or challenging client or situation that you think caused you to have some awareness? And
Mm,
maybe it was hard, and maybe talk about why it was hard, but kind of what you think you learned from this, whatever this thing is, this challenging experience. And maybe that could lead us down to some more conversation.
yeah, that's beautiful. I want to honor that question first off and just reflect back that I think that is the human experience is when we get deeper and deeper into the core of who we are, what we would call view of self
Mhm.
in EFT sort of terminology, which is how I see myself, my very meanness. There's no way to start that journey down, I feel like, as an adult without going through shame
Right.
to get there. And all shame really is, in my opinion, is a placeholder
Hmm.
that is saying, this is where I would want to be loved, where I want to feel worthy, where I have emotion, but can't, didn't get responded to, hasn't been safe to go into. And so, in the journey that we all take to the core of who we are, it's kind of like facing those trials and demons and looking in the mirror and really seeing where we're not so perfect,
So it's
where we
kind of, right. So it's kind of like you're saying, just to go with you, is that for a lot of us, probably everybody, there are those times when we're not happy with ourselves. We're not happy with what we've done or what we're saying. And we do get stuck in that shame place, right? And that thinking about me, that maybe there's something wrong with what I did
Right,
or who I am, or just at the core that I'm not enough or something. Right? I think you're saying
right.
that that's maybe like you said, kind of a placeholder, a place that then can be kind of a jumping off place for other personal growth.
Yeah, and it's super weird because I always thought that shame would feel distinct. Like this is shame, the way I experience sadness or loneliness or joy, and it's really not.
Right.
And I haven't really experienced my clients talk about it or my friends or family members, talk about it that way. It's usually what in the world is going on? What is happening? I'm lost. I feel like I got caught in a riptide and now I'm out in open sea. I don't even know what started it. I just find myself overwhelmed and not feeling so great about me.
Right.
And maybe not even able to articulate what's happening, what happened, what triggered it.
Right.
Maybe I wasn't responded to,
Right.
maybe I felt misunderstood. Maybe I don't even know what's going
And
on. And I
would you
get
agree
lost.
that you get lost? And sometimes that shows up as just like a mood, an irritability, or
Yes.
some kind of a mood, some kind of an like a icky
Like a
thing.
yuck, yuck.
And a
Yep.
lot of times, like you're saying, we're not clear on exactly what it is, except what we're clear on is it feels really shitty.
Yes, exactly. So I've just spent like a year in that place, like a year, a
Wow.
solid year at a very deeper sort of work. You know, a couple different things I could kind of point to that all converged at the same moment, professionally, personally, relationally, like felt like spiritually, all of the things kind of happened that I couldn't reframe it. I couldn't doggy paddle my way above it and kind of just ease through it to like more solid ground. It was really a space that opened up that the only option I felt like I had, it's like a fork in the road. I could either back away and kind of come back up a little and go, I'm not ready to go deeper into whatever that pocket of the unknown is, that
Right.
unconscious something
Right.
that wants to be healed. I can choose that. Like I felt the option that I don't have to go into that place right now and I could come back and breathe and settle and kind of move forward. Or is this a time, is this a place where I can accept that invitation and slip into unknown, uncharted territory and face some of these demons, these scary sort of parts that I don't even know what's going to be in there? Very much like where we take our clients in stage 2, I imagine, where
Okay.
it's leaving the known into some unknown. And I didn't know what I was going to find in
You,
those places.
you know what? I'm actually feeling that in my body as you say that, because
Yeah.
here's the the picture that comes up for me is, and maybe clients have and folks have felt this too. It's almost like I just saw like there's this chasm, right? We're on this
Yeah.
cliff and we're
Yeah.
looking down into maybe like it seems like a
The
volcano.
abyss.
We're looking
Yes.
down and something is telling us or you that like I need or I want to lean into this. I want to go into this emotional or whatever it is, but yet every part of my body wants me to retreat, and I want to withdraw and kind of go back to what we've always done, which is I'll
Yeah.
withdraw and I'll kind of like you say, I'll dog paddle and I'll work through things. But maybe what you're saying, Teri, too, and I'd love it if you give us some specifics, is that it's like there's this, you felt a calling or something that
Mhm.
pushed you to say, I'm not going to sidestep this. I'm going to somehow lean into it.
Yes. Yeah. So I found out that I was a trainer this past February, March, earlier this year.
Mhm.
At the same time, I hit like a 10-year sort of mark of my practice. I'm 42. Both of my kids went into high school. It was just a lot of kind of endings
Right.
all at the same time. And I kind of felt nothing, nothing. And I was like,
Right.
huh,
Right. So one thing
interesting.
just interesting, right? But and I want just the audience to know that in our world, the EFT world, a trainer is being in a position, you sort of become a therapist, you become a supervisor, and then at some point, for a lot of reasons, you sort of step into a different level of teaching and leadership and you
Right.
become a trainer, and there's only a very small number of trainers in the whole world. I don't know. I saw a picture once of like, I don't know, 50 or 100 people or something worldwide.
70.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
70.
like a huge, what's the word? You only get there, Teri, when a lot of people think you're pretty awesome. And a lot of people are putting a lot of trust in you, and they're kind of saying, hey, Teri, you're not only great at what you do, but you're ready to go out and teach this and lead
Yeah.
groups of people. And to me, I can just feel like this like whoa, like
Yeah.
exciting, but maybe like kind of like a responsibility or something. So you said that you got to a place with all that and you felt nothing. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I hit what had been my like pipe dream. Never even thought maybe it would be possible to be able to do this. This would have been what I would have considered the ultimate success. Like if we look at it in kind of a hierarchical type framework.
Right.
And when I got there, I mean, I could have imagined a lot of things. Excitement, which I did feel. I felt grateful. I felt like those things leading up to that moment, it was a huge relief, just beautiful. Like loved all of that. And then almost like the next moment, I hung up the Zoom call, finding it out. I was at my sister's house. And the first thought in my head was, what's next? And I was like, whoa, like I didn't even have a moment of just like sitting with myself. All this hard work that I'd done, all the energy, the travel,
Right.
the service, like all of the things that had happened. And I don't know, it was kind of like alarm bells went off, this wake up call. And I just went into this place. Numb is not even right, because that would still be something. It was like nothing,
So
nothing.
is part of what you're saying is that because this is what our clients go through, right? Was it almost hard to sit for a period of time with the wonderful truth
Yeah.
of how much of what people thought of you, of
Oh, yeah.
how much, I mean, that kind of, I don't know, yeah, there's respect. There's just like, Teri, we believe in you. We believe you're going to help a lot of other people. Was it all, because I know for me, like, I don't take compliments very well. Like,
Yeah.
I take compliments and what jumps into my head is usually like, first of all, like, well, why is that person complimenting me? And the second one is, I don't know. If they really knew me, would they really say that? Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I think I had trained my nervous system and my body to go, 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 respond, look for the next place to work or serve or do or build.
Right.
And it was all done. My work was done. It is finished. It's time to rest and celebrate. You made it. Like you did
Right.
what you set out to do. You've cared for your people. You've cared for, like, you've done the things. And then it was just really tricky because I thought, huh, now what? Like I literally didn't know what to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, I help clients with this all the time. Like I take good care of myself. I eat, I sleep, I exercise, I journal, I spend time in meditation and stuff. And like, it's not that. It's not that I don't do self-care, like the
Right.
rhythms and the routines. So it wasn't any one thing I could point to. And I was like, oh, this is actually about who I am. And
Mm.
I don't even know what's missing. I don't even know what it is. It's not like something had happened that hurt me that I needed to heal, or that I had burnt all the way out and now I just need to restore energy. I was at the edge of me. I was at the very edge of me, and I knew that there was something more and I didn't know what it was.
So could that be something like what our clients will say when they I'm trying to figure out what that is, because that's such a interesting thing you're describing, because it's
Mhm.
almost like it sounds like there's a little bit of loneliness in there, but almost like, because I know what it takes to be a trainer in this world that we're in, and it takes a ton of like you're you're wearing lots of hats at one time,
It's true.
and you're going out and you're setting up these, you have to have this organizational skill. You're setting up these trainings across the country. You have hundreds of people emailing you, and you're putting
Yeah.
together packets, and you're putting together slideshows, and you're getting ready to go and show up for a 4-day, a training for 8 hours a day, where
Yeah.
it's all on you. I mean, it's like, hey, it's almost like entertain us, oh,
Yeah.
wise guru person. And I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
that is, and I'm so curious for what you're going to tell me about where it then went, right? Because
Mhm.
if, I mean, because I kind of had a little bit of that feeling when I got asked to be a founding member of this clinic. I remember feeling amazingly honored, right? Because I worked at a
Yeah.
place called the EFT Clinic. It was because a couple of very senior people, they said, Ed, we see this in you. You're great at what you do. Your heart, you're going to be amazing. We want you to come with us and kind of build
Yeah.
this A team, right? And I remember this experience of feeling that was wonderful. But then I remember sitting in my new office, in this beautiful office, the nicest place I'd ever worked, right? That where they'd spent all this money. And I remember the first week of seeing clients, and oh my word, like I had so much kind of imposter syndrome. And the thoughts were like, now I got to live up to this. Like people, and people are gonna, and started sending me their hardest clients.
Yeah.
And that first 6 months was brutal,
Yeah.
mostly because I was, maybe it was confused, but I was upset, but I definitely didn't feel like I was ready. And I was putting a ton of pressure on myself. So I don't know if any of that fits with what you're talking
Yeah. I mean, that all makes a lot of sense to me. There is a lot of pressure and responsibility in leadership positions. And one of the things that is so key for me too, this probably sounds weird. I don't know if it makes any sense. You can ask me about it, but I didn't want to do hierarchies anymore. I knew that I don't believe in teaching down.
about.
I really would rather sit in a living room with people and
Right,
talk the way that we are, to have more of an ecosystem where, like the Knights of the Round Table, we all sit around and put, our stuff in the middle
right,
together. Because I really just don't see myself, even though like I honor the trainer position, I want to serve the best I can. I see myself as a co-learner
right,
with everyone, especially in this spiral that we're all going through. The thing that I went through, and I'm still finding words for it, I'm still definitely finding words for this last year, but what I think I had to go and get was more of my wholeness. That
right,
there was no way to know the parts of you that are unconscious, that we disown, that are dismembered from us, until you're faced with a newer, different, bigger, more challenging area. And there's just no way these parts would have made themselves manifest had I not faced this next leading edge of my growth.
So would that fit with this idea? I'm a huge Brene Brown fan.
Of Brene.
And
Yeah.
her idea of what it means to live in a wholehearted way.
Yeah.
And because part of what I hear you saying is I know this, right? Because there's this thing that we all struggle with, which is I just call, we have sort of our ego experience in the world, and then we have our authentic. And I'm always trying to help clients and myself figure out what is authentic, right? But the challenge is what's authentic a lot of times means boundaries, and it means saying no,
Yeah.
and it goes against what I've struggled with most of my life, which is people pleasing.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so what I hear you saying is it's almost like when you were in this new space, and suddenly there's like a new thing for Teri that see, and here's part of this. I'm kind of rambling here, is that one of the things that I think is a trap that does happen in probably the EFT world and probably every world where people are trying to learn a very difficult skill like EFT therapy. And it's very tricky because it's not just a mental experience, it's a hard experience. There's a whole experience that we're trying to help these therapists learn and then grow and then help people, right? Is that the hierarchy part is that, and I've done this when I was training and I'm just barely getting out of it, I would always put these people on a pedestal. And I
Yeah.
would go to a 4-day training and I would see someone like Sue Johnson or Rebecca Jorgensen or George Fowler or you or Annabelle Bugatti or somebody, right? Do some bit of training work.
Yeah.
Even though I'm loving it because I'm learning, there's this part of me that goes, well, that's them.
Yeah.
And they're the people with all these skills. And then here's me, right? And that's the part, like with my supervisees, that I'm always trying to help break up, is I'm
Yeah.
trying to help people see that no, even at 1 month in or 1 year in or 2 years in, you have the therapist, you have your own way of doing this that is like no one else. And the authentic you is enough right now. But maybe that's partly what you're talking about, is you didn't want to like be like this trainer who everyone put on a pedestal. You want that partly because that can be also a disservice to the people trying to learn.
Right. Because it's really not about me at all. Like, I really do believe the best way that I can engage in learning with people is to really just be myself with them.
Right.
That the experience is really what helps people. Like, we can all go read books, about the knowledge and everything, but the beauty and the change and like the invitation we give to clients is really to step into safe, unconditional, positive regard where it's not necessarily always safe. It starts that way, but where from that platform of safety, we invite people to risk into the unconscious, into the unknown, into those places where maybe it's never been safe to go before.
Right.
And I want learning to parallel that. So I have to be willing at every level. And because I really take it very seriously, the mantle of responsibility of training, I've got to be really, really honest with myself and be really willing to go as deep as I can into my own view of self, into who I am. And if there's any sort of identity or any piece that my ego gets really attached to, it's going to get in the way of those places because it always has, it always has.
Right. So let me ask this. So a year ago, you have this huge change and you're now stepping into this role, and you're probably now interacting with other trainers and you're starting to plan trainings and you're being brought in to train, and all those things are happening, which would completely upset your routine that you have at home, as just you have your practice, you see clients near your home, your office, and then you're home a lot with your family. Suddenly you're gonna have to travel more,
Yeah.
maybe I'll be resident. So maybe do this. I think people would be fascinated by this. What you're talking about, which is I call almost like this this beautiful existential crisis of trying
Yes.
trying to like figure out what the hell is going on? Who am I?
Who
And
the hell am I
so
even? Yeah.
you don't want to just like step into like put on, oh, I'm going to find the EFT trainer coat and put it on, and I'll just be like George, or I'll be like Becca, or something like that. And so, what were maybe one of the experiences that you had when you started doing the work? Like, what could you tell us? Like, what do you remember a situation that was important to you that you learned from maybe in the early stages of it, and then maybe something in the last couple of months? Because I think you're talking, it feels like there's a suspense to this movie, and I'm looking at the time, and I'm dying here because we only have another 15 minutes.
I know, and I'm a little long-winded. I am definitely a storyteller at heart.
You're amazing, and I'm just enthralled by this. And so help us understand kind of what happened, and maybe tell us about some situations.
So, yeah, once I realized this was happening and that I chose to accept the call to move within instead of continue to build outside of me. So, no, I didn't want to continue to like build things, to stack more work or business or status or any of those things. Like, I made a really conscious decision to not do that. And so I connected with just like 3, 4 very, very close, very, very inner circle people in my life and said, heads up, I'm going down. I need to descend into darkness, into the desert, and go collect the bones, of myself that have been scattered about, that I wasn't even aware of those pieces, because I need to get on solid ground before I move out in a way that I'm training other people. I need to be solid within. And I need to deepen even more. I need deeper roots than what I've got currently. And so what that's going to mean is I'm going to reduce my practice by 75%. I saw 5 clients a week for this last year. That's it. I used to see like 20. I'm going to say no to everything that I don't have to do. I stopped business coaching. I stopped my mastermind. I paused supervision. I didn't take in any new clients at all for almost a year, like nothing. I put the brakes on everything.
Right. So to me, this is kind of lesson for me and for our learners. 2 things that I would say. Here I am reflecting, which is one thing that we do in EFT.
Beautiful skill.
The first thing that you just said, though, is that you grabbed your peeps. You found your 2 or 3 or 4. See, I've got the same. I've got 2 or 3 or 4 people that are the core people who I know I could always call at 4 o'clock in the morning because I'm in the fetal position and I need them, and they would drive for an hour to be with me, right? And I would do the same with them. You were smart enough or wise enough to know that if you're going to take this journey, you needed support, right? So that's one thing. But then you really set some boundaries, Teri, and it sounds like you very intentionally said, see, and because a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of people would just say, wow, this is that new thing, and so I'm going to look at my schedule, so I'll be in Memphis for 4 days, and then I'll be home that night, and I'll see 4 more clients the next morning, and suddenly life gets fuller and fuller and fuller, and pretty soon your heart and your soul would start screaming. So it sounds like at some level you knew that you needed to really retrench and really give yourself space for this new thing. I mean, if that's all that we got to, that's amazing. Because to me, that is speaking to right now in my life how I want to spend time with my family. Really, that's where I want to be really the most and show up, right? But I want to prioritize pretty much everything that I do every hour of my day so that I can show up as the most healthy, grounded, and happy Ed that I can be. So talk more about this. So this is exciting. So you made these changes to give yourself some space to be healthy. Is that close?
Yeah, some space to really, the best word that I could really use to describe that was really to first grieve. And I'm surprised, like it really surprised me. It caught me a bit off guard that grief is what came up. I mean, I revisited childhood narratives, the relationship with my parents, Everything that really poured into how I saw myself, my identity, my very identity, and then all the roles, like all the layers of lacquer and shellac that had built up over time to help me through the world. I feel like we all do that, and I think it's a good thing. I think all of that was meant to be, and I love the earlier me that took such good care of me to get me to that place. And then I started to suffocate from all the built up layers. And I wish I could say that then it was like happily ever after a year ago when I started setting those boundaries, but it sucked really, really bad. Like it got so much worse before it got better because peeling each layer off felt like uh like the core of who I was were getting pulled out. Like it felt like I was bleeding out in some ways, you know, and if I hadn't had that support, oh my gosh, might have gotten lost. I've gotten lost before in other grief experiences and the only way that I knew to reach out is because I hadn't done it in the past and then suffered kind of silently and then got a bit lost in that shame place, you know, and this time felt a little different. Like I was able to process when I needed to, and then to just be able to go so deep in and just say, I'm not going to have words for this for a while. Like I just need to be able to sink down and not have someone out of their discomfort try and pop me out of that place.
Well, you
But
see,
to thoroughly go all the way down.
right. And something that you said to me before we started this recording, we talked about that concept of when am I available to people, right? This idea of, because as therapists, a lot of times, and I know I went through this, a lot of people do, there are seasons in our lives when we get really out of balance because we make ourselves available to so many people, clients, calling us, just being what I just call is that we step into a very responsible role. And it's really kind of for me, it's kind of an ego role because it's sort of like, well, I'm getting so good at this and these people need me. And so I need to, boy, I gotta be available for them. And so sorry, son, Eli, who's 14 and wants to hang out with his dad from 7 to 8. I gotta take this call from this client who is in crisis. Right. And it almost feels like when you're saying this peeling away that hurts, I've experienced that when I'm trying to actually peel myself away from that self-concept of I have to be available to everybody. Because there's kind of a comfort in that. It makes my ego feel good that I'm so important.
Yes. Yes, of course. Of course. You know, and we're wired that like when someone's like, oh, thank you for being there, that validation is part of what we really need.
Right.
And that I relate to that. And I do think that we still need some of that, but then it makes it really difficult to find what is my work to do? What am I really being called to? And it got a bit blurry for me. And so part of the process of letting myself intentionally going there, I stripped myself really of every identity until all that was left is not I am a therapist, I am a trainer, I am a mother, I am a partner. It was just I am. I just am. Is that enough?
Wow.
Am I worthy of being a human, of being lovable, of being myself, if that's all there is?
Right.
And what I found at the very bottom of that is yes. And then that's a very different place to come out of, to set boundaries from, to include myself in the loving place. Like, yes, we work with people who are hurting, but if we aren't rooted and grounded and available to step into this space, then it doesn't do anybody any good. And we end up working hurt too. You know, so like this is the best thing we can do. This liberation that we have for ourselves ends up being better for everybody.
So let me ask you this then, and this will be where we'll probably have to end here in the next 5 or 7 minutes. Is what you're talking about, I think is it's partly it's self-care, but it's more than that. You're talking about going very deep to ask yourself, really, who am I? And really trying to get what I call get conscious of your own domestication, right? By your family and all the ego experiences that we all have that have brought us to this place so that, so that I see and I experience the world the way I do. So what did it, or here, let me see. I gotta ask this question. Well, there's so many things. So when things started to get better, or even in the middle of where it was hard, what is a day or two or three in the life of Teri that
Mhm.
is the kinds of the way that you're actually spending your day, that
Mhm.
is that is an expression of you honoring this new journey? Like what does it look practically like on the ground?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So for me, and it's so personal, where I am right now, I wake up kind of early before my kids get up. I really like the quiet of the morning. I'm a morning person anyway. My body wakes me up by 6, regardless of what time I go to bed or what's going on in my life. But I love to wake up early. I start with a mug of hot lemon water just to kind of cleanse my system. And it feels really nice to me before my first cup of coffee, which my husband always makes for me in the morning. It's a ritual the two of us have. But I spend every morning journaling. I sit, I write my dreams down, which has been a huge part of connecting with the unconscious, for me. Meditate, pray, connect with source, love, that
So
deep connected place.
you're writing down your dreams. You're writing
Mhm.
and meditating about dreams.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
part of
Good.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then something I'm reading, I just was processing through the heroine's journey, which is a huge part of internal process and reconnecting to the feminine, the experience, the beauty of soul. Where is soul here? Connecting deep down within my inner knowing, my intuition, like the very me on the inside that's been there, since I came into being, that will be with me, through whenever. And when I can connect with that place, I can feel that feels good to me. Sometimes it takes me not very long. Sometimes it takes me hours. And I've just given myself space. Sometimes I got to get to work, if it's a client day and I have a client at 8 or 9, then that time is a little bit shorter and that's okay.
Mhm.
And then it's very important for me to move my body every day,
Good.
every single day, whether it's walking or yoga or stretching or running, and depending on my mood, that's been absolutely key. That I really feel like mind and body and soul and heart are completely interwoven, and we got to take care of all of those pieces. The food I put into my body, the beverages that I consume, what I feed my mind with, what I read and study. I probably am reading probably 11, 12 books, at
That's
any given. I'm such a nerd. Like a
that's
little bit of learning, a little bit of therapy, a little bit of spiritual, a little bit of fiction, a little bit of nonfiction, a little bit of random gardening, or some interest or something, like kind of pull from all
Mhm.
the pieces. And then I like connecting with my family, my partner, a friend, my sister, different people in that way, and then try to think of some way that I can serve or give back, or, you know, connect with humans, with the people in some sort of way. And then I check my email like 3 times a week. That's pretty much it. I don't have it on my phone anymore. I have had to set
You
boundaries in some
you
places.
only check your email 3 times a week?
Yeah.
Holy Hannah, that's amazing.
Well, that has not always been the way. I was like
Right.
always checking, always refreshing, and terrified that I was going to miss
Yeah.
something in life would just pass me by. And what I found in the last year, by not actually producing anything, like nothing, just being, is that what's for me is still here. And I actually am able to really be more present for it too.
Yeah, you see, this is something that I think about all the time. Wow. I'm buzzing energetically. Um, is that I was talking to a client about this yesterday because I give clients homework sometimes, and one of
Mhm.
the things that I've been giving clients homework to do, and that my wife Candace and I have been doing, is we've come up with a really nerdy name for it, and we just call it sharing and caring, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what it is for us is it's in the morning and it's a cup of coffee, and it can be 2 minutes or it can be an hour. It's probably somewhere between 2 and 20 minutes, right? But it's a time where we intentionally sit down, face each other, let ourselves energetically connect. And it's really just nothing more than, hey, babe, tell me what's going on. How you feeling?
Yeah.
And she says some stuff, and then I tell her, oh, this is what I hear you saying. And I reflect it back and validate it. And then we switch. Um, and it makes all the difference. See,
Yeah.
but what I'm hearing from you, Teri, is that you're just getting in some ways very intentional. But it's almost like some source, I don't know if it God or Mother Earth or some source is coming in and giving you this wisdom, and you're opening up to this wisdom,
Yeah.
right? That is basically saying all that you need to do is just be authentically Teri, just be
Yeah.
you. But you can't be you if you're rushing around and you're living, I mean, there's a wonderful book that I forget who wrote it, about the folly of hurry, right? It was
Yeah. Yeah.
some great book out there, and I read part of it and I just loved it. And it just talked about how when we slow down and give ourselves space, um, wonderful things happen. Our intuition grows. We start feeling more focused, and we almost just kind of start knowing what to do. And it sounds like that's what you're saying. And that's why I love the idea of you every day waking up, giving yourself that time, journaling, having your beverage. Um, I don't know. It rings to me. It kind of drips with the attachment idea of, maybe the word that I'm coming up with is nurturing,
Yeah.
and
Like that.
honoring the fact that we all have a different pace, but there's a certain pace of life that is going to work for you. And that if you don't, and if you ignore that for a period of time, and I know that burnout comes right around the corner. And
Yep.
then we get to learn from that. But personally, I'd much rather learn, be more intentional, because I know that the hard stuff's going to come anyway.
It does.
Right.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And I've made mistakes. I've tripped, I've skipped, practice, and I feel it. I can feel the doors of my heart start to be a little bit rustier to open again, when I move past these places, or I start panicking about missing out on things, or, people don't always respond well, to not immediately responding to emails and stuff. I've gotten some fun, emails back even from potential clients, and it is part of the process. Like, not everybody likes that, and it's not really the way that our culture is
Right.
wired right now. I know that, but I also know, like, not everyone probably would have to do as much carving out or go as deep. Like, I feel like I'm late, to the game of this. Like, I had a lot of layers to move back through, to take off. It was a lot of repair work, a lot of gentle, nourishing, nurturing, protection, really mothering and fathering and parenting and
Right.
caring for my tender heart. I'm really sensitive. I'm really, really sensitive. It takes a lot of energy for me to show up and serve and teach and learn. And so it takes a lot of care. Like, the more it takes for me to give, the more I need to be able to pour in, and preventatively, hopefully, so that I don't get sick
Right.
or end up in the hospital, which I did several times, before all of this happened. Like, it's beautiful to tune into the body. It's beautiful to tune in to the soul. And I feel like that's exactly what the work that we're doing
Mhm.
is about. Is like, Jack Kornfield has this beautiful quote: if our compassion doesn't include ourselves, it's incomplete. And that's really what it feels like, is I'll leave on this. I texted my husband. He was out of town last weekend. My kids were both off doing something, and I was just sitting on the couch reading a fiction book with candles and some incense burning, and I had like a cozy blanket, and I was having the best time. And I just texted him, like, I'm so happy. I'm spending time with one of my favorite people. And he said, who? And I said, me, and that was new because I used to feel like, why do people want to hang out with me? I don't get it. Why would they want to come learn from me? I don't get it. Like, what is the angle or the thing? And then now I'm like, oh, we just want to be together. There's a joy just in being present, and it's shifting the way I supervise, the way I sit with clients, the way I am with my family and myself, and definitely the way I train is I want to enter in service and connection and love and soul and experience in a shared space where we're curious together. It just feels nurturing and protective. I want to protect our people. I want to protect our clients. I want to give them the best option to feel really safe so that they can risk into the unknown. And now I feel like I just get to walk with you, into places. I don't know what it's going to look like. The woods are always frightening, but I've been in the woods. I've been in there for a while. And so now it feels a little less daunting to
And
imagine going.
I think that when you're doing what you're talking about, it becomes I don't know, not easier, but it becomes more possible to take
Mhm.
the calculated risks that you want to take. Like you say, to step into the pool, to step into the forest. But I think that if we're not taking good care of ourselves, if we're not, the phrase that I love, if I'm not falling in love with myself, I
Yeah.
need to be in the process of falling in love with myself. If I'm not doing that, then my heart's going to have a hole.
Yes. Yeah. Or I'm going to need something in the work
Mhm.
that's not where it's supposed to come from. Like if I train in order to get validation or to see if I'm smart enough or worthy or any of those things, it's going to come through the work. Just like if we sit with clients and need them to think that we're awesome or, like that's just really not why we do what we do. We're in the business of walking beside people, as they move into these scary places, not as experts speaking knowledge over people because they can find that anywhere. It's really about being with people so that they can face their fears and face the unknown. I know that they're not alone. That there's somebody in the world who is like, I got you.
Right.
I got you. And
Well,
it's because I do too.
right,
We are
because
on.
yeah, because if I got me, if I'm really care about me, then I mean, I found that sometimes I've had clients just say, when they hear me talk about things that I do, that they'll just say, Ed, it seems like you're so happy. It seems like you just are having so much fun and you love what you do. I'm like, that's the greatest compliment. So
Mhm.
Teri, we're out of time, and that may be right there the place to end. But is there anything that you want to share about anything you're doing, because I used to follow you and Chris on with your Facebook and your Instagram. Is there anything you want to share? And it's okay if you don't, but anything you want to share about where people can find you or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I'm not active really on socials. It's part of the stuff that, I'm not really doing anymore. I'm at Teri Allison Murphy on Instagram and Facebook if people want to find me there, or terimurphycounseling.com is my website. And if you're looking for training, it's EFTTennessee.com. We've got some externships and core skills if people are interested in getting training. And I do actually supervise. Again, that is something that I love and adore, is sitting with people and learning the model.
And could you just say those places one more time? Just because you like
Sure. At Teri Allison Murphy on socials. My website is terimurphycounseling.com. Or if you're looking for trainings in emotionally focused therapy, you can go to EFTTennessee.com.
awesome. Well, Teri, thank you, my friend. This has just warmed my heart, and I'm just so excited for people who are going to get to see this and just get it feels like you just sort of invited us into your heart a little bit. And I just really want to honor that and just thank you for being as vulnerable as you were. It was very beautiful. So thank you.
Thanks, Ed. It's an honor to be here with you and with everybody.
Awesome. Okay. Take care.